What if the medicine cabinet your great-grandmother actually trusted wasn't a cabinet at all? What if it was a fence line, a creek bank, a crack in the sidewalk? Most of us have been trained to believe healing comes in a child-proof bottle, but for most of human history, it came from something rooted in the dirt outside your door. Plants that got people through fevers, wounds, sleepless nights, and aching joints for thousands of years before a pharmacy ever existed. Today I'm walking you through 13 of them. Real plants, real traditional use, and in most cases, real modern research standing behind what our ancestors already knew. Stick with me, because number 5 on this list is the plant that quietly inspired one of the most common medicine cabinet staples in the world today. And number 1 is the one herbalists still call the mender, because it does something for your joints and connective tissue that most people assume only modern medicine can do. If plants that have survived thousands of years of human trial and error sound worth 2 minutes of your attention, hit subscribe now, because this channel exists to hand that knowledge back to you, one forgotten remedy at a time. Let's get into it. Number 13. Chickweed, the itch answer. Chickweed is the low, tangled little plant most people rip out of their garden beds without a second thought. Small white star-shaped flowers, delicate stems, grows practically everywhere there's disturbed soil. And for centuries, it was one of the first things people reached for when skin got angry. Rashes, bug bites, eczema flares, minor burns. Stellaria media contains saponins and mucilage compounds that soothe irritated skin on contact, which is exactly why old-time healers crushed the fresh leaves into a poultice and pressed it directly onto itchy or inflamed patches. Modern herbal reviews back up what folk medicine always claimed. Chickweed has genuine anti-inflammatory and skin-soothing properties, and it's still used today in salves for eczema and minor irritation. Beyond skincare, chickweed was also eaten as a wild spring green, valued for its mild, cooling taste and its vitamin C and mineral content. At a time of year when fresh produce was scarce, herbalists sometimes added it to broths for exactly that reason. A food and a medicine served from the same bowl. Here's how it was traditionally used. Fresh chickweed, crushed or lightly chewed to release its juices, applied straight to the skin, or infused in oil for a shelf-stable salve you could keep on hand all season. It got forgotten simply because it's a weed, something people spend money trying to eliminate from their lawns, never realizing it was quietly offering relief the whole time. Think of it as the cooling hand you didn't know was reaching up out of the grass. Number 12. Cleavers, the lymph sweeper. If you've ever walked through a field and come out covered in tiny clinging burrs stuck to your socks, you've met cleavers. Gallium aspirin has a long folk reputation as a spring tonic, something people drank fresh every year to help the body flush and reset after winter. The plant is traditionally associated with supporting lymphatic drainage and mild diuretic action, and old herbal texts describe it being used for swollen glands, skin congestion, and sluggish detox pathways. While large-scale clinical trials are limited, the traditional use is remarkably consistent across cultures and centuries, which is often a sign that something real is happening. Cleavers was often paired with other spring plants like dandelion and nettle in traditional seasonal tonics, the idea being that a handful of common weeds working together could do more for the body than any single herb alone. That combination approach shows up again and again in old herbal traditions, long before anyone used the word synergy. The classic preparation was simple: fresh cleaver's juice, pressed straight from the plant, or a light infusion of the fresh herb steeped briefly in cool water. Never boiled hard, since heat breaks down its most delicate compounds. Cleavers disappeared from common knowledge because detox tonic sounds unscientific to modern ears, even though the underlying idea, support the body's own drainage systems, is something herbalists never stopped taking seriously. It's the plant equivalent of opening a window in a stuffy room. Number 11. Horsetail, the mineral rebuilder. Horsetail looks like something out of a prehistoric forest, and honestly, it basically is. Equisetum arvense is one of the oldest plant lineages on Earth, and it's absolutely loaded with silica, a mineral your body uses to build strong hair, nails, skin, and connective tissue. Traditional healers used horsetail tea for brittle nails, thinning hair, and weak connective tissue, and modern studies on silica-rich horsetail extract have shown measurable improvements in hair strength and nail growth in supplemented users. It's also been studied for mild diuretic support and bone mineral density, since silica plays a role in how your body deposits calcium into bone. One caution worth knowing: horsetail should be used in moderation and typically only for limited stretches of time, since very high, prolonged intake can interfere with thiamine absorption. Traditional herbalists respected this by using it in cycles, weeks on, then a break, rather than as a daily habit stretched out indefinitely. The traditional method was a long-simmered tea. Horsetail needs heat and time to release its silica content. Unlike more delicate herbs, people drank it as a daily mineral-building tonic, the same way you might take a multivitamin today. Horsetail fell out of favor because mineral supplements got easier to bottle than herbs got easier to brew. But if you've ever wondered why your grandmother's nails never seemed to break, there's a decent chance horsetail tea had something to do with it. Number 10. Stinging nettle, the sting that heals. This one earns its name honestly. Brush against fresh nettle and you'll feel it instantly. But Urtica dioica has one of the strangest reputations in herbal medicine. The same plant that stings you is also one of the most respected anti-inflammatory and allergy relief herbs in traditional use. Once dried or cooked, nettle loses its sting completely and becomes remarkably nutrient-dense, rich in minerals, and traditionally used for seasonal allergies, joint pain, and low energy. Modern research has actually supported nettle's use for allergic rhinitis symptoms and mild anti-inflammatory effects on joints, giving real scientific weight to centuries of folk practice. The root, as opposed to the leaf, carries its own separate reputation, traditionally used to support men's prostate and urinary health as they age. It's a good example of how one plant can carry two entirely different medicinal identities depending on which part of it you're using. Traditionally, people dried the leaves for tea or blanched fresh nettle like spinach and ate it directly, a practice sometimes called nettle season, when foragers would harvest it fresh each spring. It got forgotten mostly because of that first painful encounter. People touch it once, get stung, and never come back. But the plant that hurts you on contact turns out to be one of the gentlest allies your body has once you know how to prepare it. It's a lesson nature seems fond of repeating. The sting is not the whole story. Number 9. Lemon balm, the nerve whisperer. Lemon balm smells like sunshine and citrus, and it's been used for over 2,000 years specifically to calm a racing mind. Melissa officinalis was written about by ancient physicians as a remedy for anxiety, restlessness, and difficulty sleeping, and unlike many calming herbs, it doesn't leave you groggy. Modern clinical research has actually confirmed measurable anti-anxiety and mood-improving effects from lemon balm extract, along with mild cognitive benefits in some studies. It contains compounds that interact gently with the nervous system's calming pathways, without the sedating heaviness of stronger herbs. Lemon balm even found its way into one of the most famous herbal formulas in European history, a blended tonic once bottled by monastic pharmacists, specifically for nerves and digestion. Centuries later, the plant inside that old formula is still doing exactly the same quiet work. The traditional preparation is almost embarrassingly simple. Fresh or dried leaves steeped as a light, fragrant tea, taken in the evening to unwind, or during the day when stress starts creeping in. Lemon balm got forgotten the way most gentle remedies do. Pharmaceutical anti-anxiety medication works faster and stronger, So a soft, everyday herb like this one quietly slipped out of daily habit. But for the low hum of everyday stress, it's still doing exactly what it did 2,000 years ago. It's the herbal equivalent of a hand on your shoulder telling you to breathe. Number 8. Willow bark, the pain teacher. Long before synthetic aspirin existed, people chewed on the inner bark of willow trees to relieve pain, fever, and inflammation. Salix species contain salicin, a compound your body converts into the same active ingredient that eventually inspired modern aspirin. Clinical research has shown willow bark extract can meaningfully reduce lower back pain and osteoarthritis symptoms, and its anti-inflammatory effects are well documented. The traditional method was a long-simmered decoction of the stripped inner bark, taken for headaches, fevers, and aching joints. A bitter, no-nonsense remedy for a no-nonsense problem. Different willow species carry different amounts of salicin, which is why some traditional healers preferred black willow or purple willow bark over others for stronger effect, choosing their tree the way a modern pharmacist might choose a dosage strength. That kind of species-specific knowledge, passed down and tested generation after generation, is easy to overlook today, but represented real accumulated expertise. But here's an important caution, the kind our ancestors couldn't have known through trial alone. Willow bark works through a mechanism similar to aspirin, which means it isn't right for everyone. People with aspirin sensitivities, bleeding disorders, or who are on blood-thinning medication should treat it with the same caution they'd treat aspirin itself, and it should never be given to children recovering from viral illness, for the same Ray's syndrome concerns associated with aspirin. Willow bark got forgotten because chemists eventually isolated and refined its active compound into something more consistent. But the tree that started it all is still standing along riverbanks everywhere. A quiet reminder that sometimes modern medicine's biggest breakthroughs started as someone chewing on tree bark and paying attention. Now, if this is the kind of forgotten knowledge that makes you want to look twice at the plants growing outside your own window, do me a favor and tap that like button. It genuinely helps this video reach more people who are ready to reconnect with remedies that have quietly worked for centuries. And we've still got some of the best ones coming up. Number 7. Cattail, the wilderness pharmacy. Cattails grow in nearly every wetland, ditch, and pond edge across the country, and almost nobody looks at them twice. But typha species were once considered a full-service first aid kit by people who spent their lives outdoors. The soft, spongy inner material found at the base of the leaves, sometimes called cattail down or pith, was traditionally applied directly to cuts, burns, and blisters as a natural, absorbent wound dressing. The starchy rootstock was also used as a poultice base for drawing out splinters and soothing insect stings. While formal clinical research on cattail is sparse, its traditional use as an emergency wound covering is documented across multiple indigenous and folk medicine traditions independently, a strong sign the practice earned its reputation through results, not superstition. Cattail's usefulness didn't stop at first aid either. The pollen was traditionally gathered and used as a nutritious flour additive, meaning the same plant that patched up a wound could also help feed the person recovering from it. A rare example of a single plant serving as both pharmacy and pantry. The traditional application was straightforward. Split the stem or root, apply the soft inner material directly to the wound, and secure it in place until proper care was available. Cattail got forgotten simply because it belongs to a category of knowledge, wilderness first aid, that most people no longer need day to day. But for anyone who spends real time outdoors, it's still standing in the mud, patient as ever, exactly where it's always been. Number 6. Slippery elm, the gut coater. Slippery elm has one of the most literal names in herbal medicine, and it earns it. The inner bark of Ulmus rubra, when mixed with water, turns into a smooth, slippery gel called mucilage, and that gel has been used for centuries to soothe irritated tissue anywhere it touches, from a sore throat to an upset stomach. Traditional use includes sore throats, coughs, acid reflux, and general digestive irritation, and modern research has confirmed that slippery elm's mucilage forms a genuine protective coating over irritated mucous membranes, which explains why it brings such quick relief for throat and stomach discomfort. It's even recognized as a demulcent, a category of remedy specifically defined by this soothing, coating action. By the 1800s, slippery elm had become common enough that commercial lozenges made from the powdered bark were sold openly in general stores and pharmacies, marketed specifically for coughs and sore throats, a genuinely herbal remedy that briefly crossed over into mainstream commerce before synthetic alternatives took its place. The classic preparation was a simple gruel-like tea. Powdered inner bark stirred into warm water until it thickened slightly, then sipped slowly. It has almost no strong taste, which made it easy to give to children and anyone with a sensitive stomach. Slippery elm got forgotten as antacids and throat lozenges became instant, pocket-sized alternatives. But for anyone who's ever wished a sore throat remedy would actually coat and protect instead of just numb, this bark has been quietly doing that job the entire time. Number 5. Feverfew, the migraine ancestor. And here's the one I mentioned at the very beginning, the plant that quietly shaped one of the most common remedies people reach for today. Feverfew, Tenacitum parthenium, earned its place in herbal medicine as a specific remedy for headaches and migraines, used consistently for this single purpose across centuries of European folk practice. Multiple modern clinical trials have studied feverfew specifically for migraine prevention, and several have shown a meaningful reduction in migraine frequency and severity among regular users. Researchers believe compounds in the leaves affect blood vessel constriction and inflammatory pathways associated with migraine onset, mechanisms that weren't understood at all when the plant was first put to use, only observed and trusted. Interestingly, feverfew's name actually comes from its much older reputation as a general fever remedy, long before anyone connected it specifically to migraines. It took centuries of quiet, consistent use before that more specific benefit was recognized and studied on its own. Traditionally, people chewed a small fresh leaf daily as a preventive measure, or dried the leaves for a daily tea, taken consistently rather than only during an active headache. Feverfew got forgotten the way so many preventive herbs do. Modern medicine excels at treating pain once it hits, but a slow, daily, preventive herb doesn't fit neatly into a culture built around instant relief. Still, for the millions of people who live with recurring migraines, it's remarkable that one of the most promising options isn't a new discovery at all. It's a small, unassuming leaf that's been waiting this whole time to be taken seriously again. Number 4. Goldenrod, the kidney flusher. Goldenrod gets blamed for allergies it doesn't even cause. That's ragweed, blooming at the same time, but this bright yellow roadside flower has a long, genuinely respected medicinal history of its own. Solidago species were traditionally used to support urinary tract health and encourage healthy kidney function. Herbal reviews describe goldenrod as having mild diuretic and anti-inflammatory properties, and it's still included today in some European herbal formulations specifically marketed for urinary tract support. Traditional herbalists used it both to help flush the urinary system and to ease the mild inflammation that comes with minor urinary irritation. Goldenrod even has a small but genuine place in American history. After the Boston Tea Party, colonists boycotting British tea turned to dried goldenrod as a substitute, brewing what became known as Liberty tea. It's a reminder that this plant's usefulness was never just medicinal. It was woven into everyday life. The traditional preparation was a light infusion of the dried flowering tops, taken as a tea, often combined with plenty of water to support its flushing action. Goldenrod got forgotten largely because of mistaken identity, a case of guilt by association with ragweed pollen, Even though goldenrod's heavier pollen barely travels on the wind at all, it's a reminder that sometimes a plant's reputation gets forgotten, not because it stopped working, but because it got blamed for something it never did. Number 3. Motherwort, the heart's calm. Motherwort has a name that tells its own story. Leonoris cardiaca was traditionally given to women during pregnancy, postpartum recovery, and menopause, specifically to calm heart palpitations and steady frayed nerves during periods of major physical and emotional change. Traditional use centers on its ability to ease heart palpitations linked to anxiety and hormonal shifts, along with general nervous tension. Some modern research on related Leonoris species has shown mild calming effects on the cardiovascular and nervous systems, lending scientific weight to a use that herbalists never really stopped relying on. Motherwort was also traditionally combined with hawthorn in old heart tonics, the two herbs used together to support both the emotional and physical rhythm of the heart. That pairing still shows up in herbal formulations today, a quiet inheritance from generations of women who relied on both plants together. The traditional preparation was a tincture or tea made from the flowering tops, taken in small, consistent doses during periods of stress or hormonal transition, rather than as an emergency remedy. Motherwort got forgotten, partly because its bitter taste makes it unpopular, and partly because nerve tonic for women isn't a category modern medicine formally recognizes. But for the specific, very human experience of a racing heart during an anxious or transitional season of life, it's still exactly what it was named for: a steady hand, offered by something that grew wild and asked for nothing in return. Number 2. White pine, the forest's vitamin C. Long before citrus fruit was available in northern climates, people survived brutal winters using something growing right over their heads. The needles of Pinus strobus, white pine, are unusually rich in vitamin C, so rich that pine needle tea became a critical remedy for preventing scurvy among people living far from fresh produce for months at a time. Beyond vitamin C content, pine needles contain compounds with mild antimicrobial and expectorant properties, and traditional use extended to soothing coughs and clearing chest congestion during long winters. The needles were also used topically, infused in oil, for minor skin irritation and joint discomfort. In truly desperate times, even the inner bark of the tree was dried, ground, and added to bread as a famine food, providing calories and nutrients when little else was available. It's a stark reminder of just how completely some communities depended on a single tree for both food and medicine. The traditional preparation was simple: fresh young needles, chopped and steeped in hot water for several minutes, producing a bright, citrusy tea despite coming from a tree that looks nothing like a fruit. Pine needle tea got forgotten the moment global shipping made oranges available everywhere, year-round, but the tree that once stood between entire communities and a serious nutritional deficiency is still standing in forests everywhere, offering the exact same thing, completely free, every single winter. Number 1. Solomon's seal, the mender. And here we are at the last one, the plant I saved for the end, because it quietly ties this entire list together. Polygonatum species, commonly called Solomon's seal, were used for centuries specifically for one thing: repairing damaged joints, tendons, and ligaments. Traditional Chinese and European herbal medicine both independently arrived at the same use for this plant, applying crushed root preparations to sprains, strained tendons, and joint injuries to speed recovery and reduce swelling. That kind of cross-cultural agreement, arrived at completely independently, is one of the strongest signals traditional medicine can offer. Two unconnected traditions running the same experiment for centuries and landing on the same answer. Modern interest in Solomon's seal has grown recently among practitioners studying connective tissue healing, though large-scale clinical trials are still catching up to what folk practice concluded generations ago. One practical note for anyone foraging: true Solomon's seal has a distinctive root scar pattern that gives the plant its name, and it's worth learning to identify correctly, since a look-alike plant, false Solomon's seal, doesn't carry the same medicinal reputation. Knowing your plant, not just its name, was always half of traditional herbal knowledge. The traditional preparation was a root poultice or infused oil, massaged gently over the injured joint or tendon, often alongside rest and gentle movement. Solomon's seal got forgotten because modern orthopedics turned to imaging, surgery, and physical therapy. Powerful tools, but ones that left little room in the conversation for a quiet root that used to do a version of the same job. And that's really the thread running through this entire list. We didn't out-invent traditional plant medicine so much as we got busy, moved indoors, and stopped looking down at what was still growing, right where it always had been. The plants never left. We just stopped asking them for help. If any of these 13 plants surprised you, smash that like button. It tells this channel exactly what to bring you more of. And I want to hear from you directly. Which category are you most drawn to? The nerve-calming herbs, the wound-healing plants, or the ones for chronic pain and joints? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Hit that button, ring the bell, and let's keep bringing forgotten knowledge back into the light, one plant at a time.